Hello, this is George Sandman. I'm the founder and CEO of Growth Drive. And Growth Drive is a system used by business advisors to drive client profits, growth, and value. Now, we're also a community. Every week we get together to talk about all things business advisor, everything clients, cases, things we're seeing out in the world. Now, tune in here to this podcast, and you can join the conversation by scanning this QR code, passcode 867-5309. Jump into the conversation. Everyone's welcome. We're looking forward to having you. So here we go. On with the show. So what's on your mind, guys? I was just on with Larry, and we had published a schedule for the C3D review. And then I was supposed to have oral surgery, which has now been punted to the end of August. Doctors are such. Anyway,
get it right before the summit.
I will not. It's 2 months prior. Anyway, but we're going to put it back on the books. And Larry and I, and then I got a bunch of feedback from you, the C3Ds. So what we have, and here's Tim. We have decided to do, based on feedback, is to book one afternoon. Tim, how are you?
Doing good.
So we're going to book one afternoon. We're looking at July 28th, Monday, July 28th from noon to 4. This is in heavy pencil. And for the C3D review, we'll have 1 4-hour session, and if needed, follow 4-hour session. And in the 4 hours, what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, you have to be through the design. So it's discovery and the growth conversation, the analysis modules, the design modules, and the execute modules. And what we're saying is, hey, to participate in the review, you have to have completed discovery, analyze, and design. And so you're well on your way. You have all of the big building blocks. And then during the review session, we're going to talk about use cases and spend conceptually about an hour on each of the modules, 45 minutes with a 1-hour QA. So that's where it stands, and I will send that out probably tomorrow. Good morning, Barry. How are you, man? How you feeling?
I'm okay.
Excellent. Eric, happy 4th of July, man.
Morning. Happy 4th.
Jeff, you're officially a regular, man.
I say that there's a lot of glow in them on my screen. I don't know what that's from.
It's your halo,
the sunshine.
Hopefully it faded.
Yeah. So what's on everybody's mind? Anything?
Commerce.
Jerry, do you have good weather guaranteed for next week?
It's been hot here, but next week they should have everything taken down from the race, which is always a pain around July 4th. But this is the last year they're going to have the race here. Their contract is up, but they may renew it for 2 more years. But yeah, it's going to be. Summertime is nice in Chicago. January is miserable.
I'll be out there, Ed, and Barry. We've got the AM and AA show next week, which is going to be great. I'm excited for that show. I don't know if I've mentioned this. I'm on a panel during the conference on AI, but the application of AI and what is AI and why is large language models, whether it's generative AI or other forms of machine learning, how are those applicable in the M&A space? It's going to be really cool. I met with the panel, and it's a bunch of energetic. It's going to be a great panel. I hope they record it, and if they do, that we'll get access to that recording.
Cool. Is you the oldest member of the panel?
Am I the oldest
member of the panel?
I'm actually not. It's a bunch of guys. It's a bunch of guys, but it's guys.
Hey, George, I got a topic. How to make $1 million a year in your advisory business and not hate your life. Looking.
Tim's head goes. Looking for suggestions
from Ed.
I got one. Blackmail.
It didn't work out for Epstein. There you go.
Epstein, Occam's razor.
Well, the sneaky way is to get in and get an opportunity to do the valuation on the intellectual property and intangible assets on the transactions because the accounting firms don't want to have that because they're doing the opinion on the financial statement. So that's the part that they don't want to touch.
Interesting. Mike, to your point, I had a meeting on the 3rd of July. Yeah. With the gentleman Dave, who founded a company called Creovalo, Creovalo. And it's a platform. It's super interesting to this community. It is a platform. In fact, I've got to get him on the podcast. That is designed specifically. He had an investment bank that was purchased by Deloitte. He worked inside Deloitte, getting their deals and taking them to market. He went through a couple of other evolutions, upward evolutions in his career, and it struck him that, let's say you're an advisor with Raymond James. Well, Raymond James and many of the wirehouses, all of the wirehouses will skim the cream deals and put those deals into their own internal bank. Great. What happens to the other deals? And what happens to the RIAs where there is a ton of, the bathtub is kind of sloshing over to the RIAs right now, Mike? I see your head going up and down. So how do we reproduce that model? But that is, obviously industry agnostic, but that is financial demographic, more pre-middle market and middle market heavy, so that, the 50 million and up revenue businesses are going to find a home. But how do we help wealth advisors who are increasingly independent or increasingly moving to RIAs be able to source deals to banks that specialize in a given type of transaction? So what he has created is a platform of investment banks that financially and industry diverse. When I say financial demographics, I mean revenue size and industry diverse. And now he's recruiting very successfully wealth advisors and some insurance advisors, but mostly wealth advisors who have owners. And so if you have a specialty plastics manufacturing business in Topeka, there's a chance that there's a bank that has done either a deal exactly like that or something substantially similar. And he's making those handshakes. What's the problem? How many businesses are ready to go to market? I say zero. Most businesses are not ready to go to market. So Dave is out for a community. And so he set the meeting with me, Dave Vorhoff, Vorhoff, hyper intelligent guy, and one of us, cares deeply about successful outcomes. And we had the right conversation on that topic as well. He's a deeply principled player. They're looking for a community of people that is easy to understand and explain, who can help businesses prepare for transactions.
So is he coming to our, is he coming?
I believe I have asked, he went off to check. We met down at Kiowa where he was visiting, and I think he's traveling back home to Austin. And so Mike, to your question, there's one part of the answer. That I'm out bird dogging those types of opportunities. And the good news is they're actually starting to find us. You C3Ds out there. So
actually, like Mike's question, I was thinking about some of the same stuff. And since you've kicked over the beehive, Mike, my goal is not to be trading hours for dollars on 4 or 5 or 6 relationships at a time, but to scale a business that if it doesn't pay me $1 million, I'd be happy to start out with $500,000. I had an interesting conversation with Barry last week, and Barry, I was thinking about following up. You've got some experience scaling a firm of CPAs, right? That you grew from 1 or 2 up to dozens. And so I thought there might be some experience in this group on how to scale a practice like that, whether it's with partners or affiliates or advisors, and where the revenue breaks are. Maybe this could be a little side project where we would help to design, like a particular growth drive practice, which is what I'm on the verge of launching here, that has the potential to scale to do what Mike is looking for.
Yeah, I'd be interested in Barry's thoughts on that as well, particularly because I've got an emerging business design that is based loosely off of some CPAs that I know, the partnering concepts and things of that nature.
Mike, you also have a membership model that you're considering, and that's something, I mean, I did a bunch of work with that for decades, and that can be very lucrative and very low, sort of low maintenance, hands off sort of an approach. So when maybe there's a way to combine a traditional professional services practice with some kind of a membership, so there's recurring revenue. You get like what a concept, we would apply the same sort of growth priorities to our own business, so we get a high multiple and high transferable value, right, with a business that can scale.
Tim, one of the groups
I'm open to any input. I'm sorry, Ed.
Yeah, one of the groups that I do work with is a group called Focus CFO. And the person who started the practice is the person I deal with. And I get on the average of between 6 and 10 business valuation engagements from him every year. But they've expanded their practice so broadly across the United States from Columbus. And he's got a unique model that he's using that's bringing, so to speak, a national alliance of people together. Are they all working on the same methodology? Not a chance in this world.
I know some of them. I agree.
No. They're aligned in brand name only. But the unique part of it is they all want to become individual business practitioners, and they don't want to have to be obligated to be working 40 hours a week. But they go in and, Tim, what they do is they go in and they work maybe 2 to 3 days a week at the top rate that they can get, anything from $1,500 to $2,000 a day. And yes, they do pay a little to the Focus brand name, but they're just generating very nice revenue, and they're saying as busy as they want to work. When they don't have the ability, that's when they bring more people in to get more people to join the group, and everybody wins.
What's their biz dev model, Ed?
I'll have to give you some info on that one offline. Okay.
Okay, cool.
My
experience is local networking and cold calling. I actually hired them a while back when I was running a business, and they networked through someone I knew who reached out and said, "Hey, you guys are growing. You've tripled your business since you've been there. Do you need some higher level strategic work on the finance side?"
I mean, they've got local market biz dev people. I know a couple in different markets, and they sponsor the hell out of EPI.
Yes, they do.
They do not, I would say, if one of them even has an idea of how to do an exit plan, it's a miracle. What they did was they got suckered into going into the training and have put absolutely none of it to practice, other than that it's now on their business card, and they can go and network at every EPI meeting and pretend like they really know what they're doing.
Yeah, they're biz dev guys,
cases,
great hunters.
One of the fellows that's a chapter president in Columbus, he basically doesn't want any of us who are involved with more advanced consulting to come to the meetings. And EPI found the problem, and so they now make all registrations come through Cleveland for any local chapter meetings.
Dude, that's a big change EPI made, and it's already working in some of the other chapters, because it was really interesting when you had a financial advisor running a chapter in a city. It was really hard for other financial advisors to join that chapter for some reason.
Exactly.
Like, their emails just never work, George. It's really weird.
That would never happen. Interesting.
Yeah. So, like, that's awesome, but I still want to hear from Barry.
Our accounting firm started with myself and a friend of mine from college, who spent quite a bit of time, forget how many years, with a well-established and growing firm in the city. I was a solo practitioner. And when we got together, we had 3 partners, 10 people. We did a little bit over $1 million in business, and we grew the firm over a 13-year period to 55 people, 7 partners, and pushing over 10 million in business. So we were a decent sized firm in Chicago. Now, how did we do this? We did this by a lot of organic growth that we basically beat the pavement and brought in clients. But we found that there were 3 of the 7 partners that were really rainmakers, and which is typical. And we also grew it by bringing in partners that had books of business, and we bought small accounting firms from practitioners that were retiring or at retirement age. In fact, we had one fellow that we bought his practice, and he begged us to let him stay 6 more months so he could say that he spent, I think it was 55 years as as an accountant. He didn't do too much work, but that was okay because of the way we structured the buyouts. In looking at this type, at exit planning or growth planning, it's different. My initial knee-jerk reaction is it might be difficult to grow, a national firm that does that, or a firm that does that with multiple partners, because one of the things that we found was that let me back up. When we got together, we brought 4 accounting firms together at the same time on December 1st. We had 4 different ways of doing things. We had 3 different tax preparation softwares. I mean, it was a mess. And it took us years to get this where we had systems. Because in a firm where you're doing a volume, you got to have systems. And if you don't have the systems in place, it's going to be heck. And really, at this point in time, I believe it's just getting those people together that have different expertise that can make rain, that will be able to form a firm. It's an interesting concept. I think it can be done, but it's going to take some time, effort, and money.
I love that.
Thank you.
And points are really.
Yeah, I don't know if I answered the question. It's a fascinating topic and something that I would welcome an opportunity to talk about more, because people look at George and I have had this conversation. A lot of professionals say that they talk about their practice. Well, we're not in business as a practice. We're in business as a business. And I'm not sure a lot of practitioners treat their business as a business.
I think you're absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Barry has to come every week.
And based on Barry's observation, by the way, I stopped using the word Barry, close friend, who was like, what the hell are you doing talking about practice? This isn't a practice. It's a business. We need to respect it. We need to call it a business. I'm like, you're right. So I tried to not use the word practice, and that's directly Barry's fault. Can I make so not Barry's fault, Barry's doing, and because it's absolutely right. May I make an observation? And something you and I have discussed, Barry, as I have with Mike and Tim, at least, and Ed, it goes without saying. We're seeing some models emerge from the community that are fascinating. We see Be Ready exits, right? Anna has now brought in several partners. They're all over the country. And they have gone the level of becoming a firm, and they are partners in an advisory business. And they have Be Ready exits and Be Ready advisors. And they have their niche. That's terrific. We also see advisors starting to work together on a regular basis. I'm thinking, there are several, but I'm thinking of, like, for example, Larry Prince works with several other people in the community on an ongoing basis on opportunities. And one of the things that we see emerge is single billing, so that the client isn't getting, 4 different invoices. They're getting one invoice, and then the distributions are being made behind the scenes. So that's kind of a pro firm. And we have a few examples of that happening out there. People buddying up or partnering up. And I'm fascinated to see that evolve.
It's working nicely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. And there's Silvana's in DC. We started the Association for Enterprise Growth years ago, which is a similar. It's a similar model. I haven't done anything with the AEG directly for several years. It's now under the super capable hands of Mark Haas. Mark is still running it, right, Silvana?
Correct. And
Yeah.
you're right. The model was exactly that, not necessarily single billing, but definitely the collaboration where you go to the client more as a group versus a composite group versus like one person. And I think it's moved more right now to just networking, but it was a great idea.
Yeah, yeah.
But their scale was different. So the model is still perfect. I just think that it's very hard to marry a membership organization with a business. And I think what they were having a hard time is that the business development and sales needed a concerted vision, mission, effort that a membership organization couldn't support, facilitate. So I think that was the trick about it.
Brings us full circle to client acquisition. And guys, these topics are actually in the summit. We are going to talk about these exact topics at several points during the summit. And especially as we lean into, Erico, and the future of the profession, how does this look for, that's one slice of the answer.
Well, and George, I was going to ask Barry what he thought. Classically, CPA firms, attorneys also, but even more so CPA firms have always been in that traditional associate partner kind of mindset, and then grown, and then of late in the last 20 years, trying to bring everything in-house, not just attest and tax work, but also bring consulting in-house, even bring financial planning in-house, even bring valuations in-house, and sort of be a one-stop shop. From my standpoint, I see more and more the creative solutions of the different entities you were talking about, George, and different people doing different things and collaborating differently. Barry, I'm just curious what you're seeing. I mean, I have a CPA certificate, but I haven't for 1 minute worked for a CPA firm. I've always been in different roles. What are you seeing in that? How are you seeing that evolve over time?
Well, Eric, I retired from the profession in 2014. So what I can talk to you about is my experience of talking with other CPAs that are still in the profession or have recently retired. And what the biggest issue that they're seeing is help getting new associates into the business. And that's why you're seeing a lot of firms merging into larger firms and a lot of consolidation going on. And the profession has realized this because they have changed the requirement to get your CPA from 5 years of undergrad now to 4 years. So it's going back to 4 years.
Yeah, it was 4 years, then it went to 5 years. Now it's back to 4 years.
They
Yeah.
can't make up their mind.
Because we're not getting the students to enter the profession. And it's not the sexiest profession anymore. You'll always have a job, but if they have a choice between going into accounting or going into IT, guess where they're going to, what they're going to do. But they are bringing a lot of these services in because they want to maintain control of the clients. Our firm, we did tax, we did a test, but we also did consulting. We had an HR consulting group, and I headed up our business consulting area, which included that. At one time, we did bring in for a short period of time a valuation practice, and we kicked them out because it became a real big issue for us. And I can talk to you offline about that. But you are seeing this consolidation of firms bringing it under one roof. But they make so much money on the compliance.
Yeah.
These other areas become secondary. And that's one of the challenges that Growth Drive has to get the CPA firms and maybe George has a different perspective on this, to really embrace this whole idea of what we do. But I think that's starting to change a little bit. But the compliance by far is the most profitable area. We made a lot of money on compliance, and I don't know too many of our audits that we did that we made the same margin. Employees is that's the biggest issue that firms are facing, no matter what size they're.
That came up consistently at both the AT Growth Forum and at AICPA Engage. It's the human capital, human capacity issues. If Carl were on, he has 40 strategies, right? But he also started 40 accounting. And 40 accounting is he's able to get all the clients he can handle because there's, to your point, Barry, there's such a shortage out there of qualified,
That's a new model that we're seeing. I've seen in the last 10 years really accelerate is outsourced back office, right? Just supporting strategies does it. Carl does it. I could probably name off a half a dozen right off the top of my head of organizations that do that nationally, right? Or super regionally.
And Eric, when you say that, what services, what back office are you referring to specifically?
They'll do your payroll for you. They will do, they're using a payroll service to do the actual processing, but they'll process they're doing all the things you would have an office staff do. ARAP, close the books for the month, do the payroll, do some light HR work, but they're not necessarily doing your hiring, your attraction or retention of employees, but they'll do the compliance part of HR, right? To Barry's point, compliance pays because you got to do it. You got to file those forms. You got to get the stuff in. You got to do all that compliance work. Somebody's got to do it, right?
Hey, Eric,
they'll file your sales tax returns for you.
It reminds me of Go High Level, which is like the amalgamation of all IT outsourced small business, but done on a accounting kind of level.
Right. Back office. Yeah. Right.
Right. And so it's really interesting how Go High Level is now aggressively working through marketing agencies. That's their big GTM right now.
I mean, Barry, to your point, accounting firms are struggling with people, but so are manufacturing firms, or so are our clients, right?
It's only going to get worse.
So the second you can say, hey, I don't have to go hire back office people. I can have a firm that does that for me and they just handle it. Right now I can focus on the people I really need, which are my manufacturing line people and my managers, right? I can actually take one whole segment of people that most business owners aren't really good at managing anyway and take them off the table, right?
But somebody has to manage that. Somebody has to manage that.
Somebody has to manage the function. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
For
can't
sure.
just, and I've seen it happen where they just let somebody do it and bad things happen. Okay.
To be honest, Barry, it's great. We love it. It's great work for us when we're helping people grow because they often need us. And I'm talking about all of us on the call now to help them manage that function. Because again, they've never been good at managing that back office function. That's why they pay a lot of money for a CFO that they don't really need full time or whatever, right? And so this is another area where we can help, is helping them manage some of those awkward areas where they're not. Business owners are mostly really good operators. They're mostly really good operators and some of them aren't, but that's where their focus is. They're mostly, to your point before, Barry, they're mostly not good business people.
No,
it's interesting, and I would agree with really good operators, especially when we get into the 3 million, 5 million, 10 million. They're strong at running the business. I think I saw Mike shake his hand like that, and I think Mike, why were you shaking your hand before?
Well, there are plenty of them that aren't great operators.
Well, and they're also terrible shareholders, and that's
I think the definition of operator Like, so if it's owning your own job, I think they're usually really good at that. But as far as operating a business, there's lots of gaps, and myself not accepted. Has anybody here other than Barry run $1 million professional services firm a year?
Silvana.
Thank you. I mean, I have. It's been a while, but I have. So
Not in professional services. I feel like everywhere else.
Yeah, not in professional services, but other places. Yes.
yeah, no, it's just really interesting. I did a chat just now on the differences between consulting firms, accounting firms, and law firms for partnering, equity stuff, and things like that. And I keep going back to what Barry said, and I'd be really interested with Silvana. But like, from my perspective, I'm going to focus on rainmaking, right? That's how I'm going to build my super firm, is because I'm already beyond capacity right now, and that's just going to continue to be a bigger problem. And so the way I'm looking at doing it, Barry and Silvana, is I'm going to have so many clients coming in, I have to partner.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think that the trick right now is to figure out what's the end-to-end service offering and what it is that exactly you want to cover, and then figure out what the other pieces and how they are integrated together and coordinated together as one. I think that's where the trick is. About 3-4 years ago, I worked for about a year to build the outsource sales and marketing with here in America and in Philippines, and putting all the pieces together and putting the pieces of that puzzle together and in end to end. It's very interesting. It's not quite 100% what we're talking about here, but it is very close, because it's the same idea of, you want to know what the end to end service delivery is, and then you have to figure out how you chunk it, and then you figure out what it is that you do, inputs, outputs, and what other people do, and how do you manage that to finish the rest. And I think that's where the trick is.
Yeah.
Well, Sylvana, I agree with you, and I think you also have to focus on those areas that you're good at.
Yes.
And that you can develop those processes and drive that business, because bigger is not always better.
Right.
Yeah.
How many times have we had clients that are big that lose money, and clients that are small that make a lot of money?
Barry, that's so powerful. Like, so one of my old businesses is Ivan Miser, the founder of BNI, and I established an international franchise company with the training stuff we developed in Roanoke here. And it went all around the world, and we made some money, but it sucked because basically I didn't own the business anymore. All the franchisees did. And you had such a disparity. And when you franchise, you lose a lot of control over how much production they have to do, like, because they're buying territories. Like, it's, from my perspective, as I look at it, I've got unique IP through my Can I Borrow Your Car referral system, which is a monster. And I've also got processes that I use. And so I'm looking at a system by which basically the partners are going to own my IP. Like, they will be able to buy into the firm, and that will give them ownership in the intellectual property that Can I Borrow Your Car represents. It's challenging legally and stuff like that, but it's pretty exciting, because I think at the end of the day, if we can keep client acquisition really, really strong for the firm, then we can be a lot more flexible with talent.
Well, it's challenging, Michael, as you're doing and as you started. And it's also challenging when you say, you know what, I'm done. I want to go and play golf or go fishing.
Fishing.
Okay. So you've got several challenges that need to be really thought out thoroughly.
Yeah. I'm doing it by elimination. It's not going to be franchising. I'll tell you that right now.
Been there, done that.
I think the model that you choose, whatever is your ultimate goal, the model that you choose of how you set it up is one thing, but also how it's managed and it is returning the desired outcome, and how it's measured and how it's overseen. It's very important too. And I'm sure that there are a lot of details here and there, but I think that's where the trick is. And that's where a lot of the decisions are going to be, Mike, where you're going to go like, well, this is what I really want, but this is what the model can return. So what can I live with? And so there are going to be some more straightening out thing or some compromises until you get to the point where you're like, okay, I can live with this. My idea is still intact. The delivery is as such, because I've spent a lot of time with, franchising models. There are so many different ones of them. And I even worked with one particular franchisor in the painting business. It's not the same. It's professional services here, but I think some of the pain points are similar as far as retaining what makes your model special, what you want people to recognize as a brand, what is the actual results, because even if you give them the IP and even if you give them everything that they need, you cannot clone yourself. That's the trick. Either be an idea person or delivery person. That's why I never really started a government consulting practice and business, because what I wanted to do was not a body shop business. And my heart was not in a body shop business. And yes, I had the $25 million task order ceiling with Accenture at Treasury, but did I really want to be drudgery in building a body shop at very small margin business? I didn't. And I never took advantage of it, and people thought I was crazy. And I just thought, you know what, maybe I'm crazy, but do I really want to be stuck in a business that doesn't fit my soul? Because I was really more interested on the more unique boutique, solving the problem kind of thing. So the same idea on what you're going to get, you're going to have to find that happy medium in the end that makes you happy.
100%. Like just personally for me, I think I've pretty much got the 7-figure agency model licked within this concept, because I'll be there in 2 years after. So it'll be a 4-year run rate to get to $1 million a year. And that's without employees. Right. And so basically what I'm looking to do is take that same concept and have other people building the same 7-figure agency concept. And the trick is the referral system produces such incredible revenue for clients. And that's really selling.
And one of the reasons that Mike,
so there's tons of challenges. I heard everything you said, Silvana, tons of challenges.
Well, one of the things you're both recognizing is are you a 1 or a 5, right? And we talk about that a lot in the community. And, are you a 1? Are you use growth, right? Are you a growth talker? Are you a 2, a growth educator? A 3, a growth planner, an architect? The 4, general contractor, etc. And a 5 is fractional, not to give it short shrift. And Silvana, you said your advisory business goals, and then how do we but the client has they're going to move from where they are today towards their intent, and you want to be relevant to the entire journey. However, let's pick on Eric. Eric may not.
Yes.
Eric may not want. Well, Eric does. So I picked a bad example. A wealth advisor wants to be. Eric wants to be part of the education process. Discovery, part of planning, and be there helping lead execution. But there are things that Eric doesn't want to do. If we take a wealth advisor, they want to be in the room. They want to be in the room, but they only want to be a 2 educator and possibly a 3 planner. And typically when they get into planning, they really want to collaborate with Eric or with Ed or Silvana or anyone in this community to create the plan. And they want to maintain their relevance to the entire journey, although it is not the services required to move the client forward are not part of their advisory business.
I think this is a really interesting conversation, George, because I think to Silvana's point, I don't think a lot of people look at what they're really good at and where they can really add value and then design the business around that. And I see this all the time when people start a business. They go out, they're a Mike and they're a fantastic salesperson, and then they believe they got to build scale. And so they hire a bunch of people, but they're lousy at managing people. And so their business model falls apart. Even though they had a real strength that they could do, they messed it up by adding something that didn't work in their that they could have worked. I mean, think about it, you know, and Mike, just to use your example, great at business development, you love the business development part. Why not just develop all the business and meet it all out to other people, right?
The one thing there is I'm better at training other people how to do business development.
Yeah, right.
Right.
I got it. Yeah, I get it for your specific, but I'm saying if some people are great being out shaking hands and kissing babies, let them do that. And there are all kinds of models. They don't have to be in a business with a whole bunch of people around them. They could just commission out all that work, right? And we don't look at all the possible models and really think about what are the best uses of time and energy and where is the best. And it's not, again, we can talk about the money part and that's important, but that's not always the only or most important thing in the business either, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's time, maybe it's freedom, maybe it's ability to transfer, right? Like all those things. I just think we don't spend enough time thinking about where the real value can be had and how do we execute it with the talent that we have.
And that requires brutal self-reflection, right?
It requires self-honesty, right? You got to be willing to say, you know, I'm not a great manager.
And additionally, you got to make sure that other people don't typecast you, right?
Yes.
And so personally for me, everyone places me in the, hey, he's incredible sales guy. That's actually not my greatest talent. You know, I'm someone who's franchised a business internationally, right? My greatest talent is taking people that don't have that highest end vision and building the $1 million business for them inside of my vision. But that's a lot of people don't know about that because I don't talk about it. Right. So it's really interesting, but you have to be brutal with it because franchising for me, incredibly easy to sell. It is the easiest business model in this market to sell because you're selling population and territory. So you can do exclusivity, all that kind of stuff. But it is a incredible pain in the ass to run as a franchisor because and for me, when I'm looking at all these models and Eric's kind of got an inside look at a lot of this stuff. And so does George. When I'm looking at all these models, I'm evaluating how much friction I'm going to experience when we have it up and running. How much friction, because that's what I don't want. I don't want a lot of drama. I don't want a lot of friction. I will gladly make less money for less interpersonal bullshit.
There you go. Money isn't the most important criteria.
Yeah,
it's a criteria, but not. It's right.
But when you bring other people into your business, and and at some point you'll bring them in at your level because you can't do everything. None of us can do everything. There are a lot of economic issues that come into play.
Oh man,
and destroy what you've got. So through those issues from day one, I'm speaking from personal experience, getting those issues on the table and figured out in the beginning is extraordinarily important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Barry. I'm 2 years into the ideation of this without launching yet, just because of what you're talking about.
Yeah. I'm 16 years in, Barry, and at the start, I used to sell based on, hey, we're coming together. There's going to be this great thing, but I didn't have a lot of value to sell at the start. And so I had to give, you had to give more of it away. Now, 16 years in, we got a huge reputation. Now I've got something to sell. They don't have the reputation. They don't have what I have, the access to people. And so now they want some of what I have, right? So it's positionally, it changes over time as well, right?
Well, it took us 2 years and tens of thousands of dollars to figure this out for our firm.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of things that to be considered a document that made several attorneys quite a bit of money.
Yeah, I resemble that remark, Barry. I resemble that.
One of the things that struck me here is George was talking about the 1 to 5 approach and listening to how everybody's describing this, is that the construction business model might work great here with where you're a general contractor, right? And then you've got subcontractors. So for example, I could be GCing the growth of, whoever knows how many, 5, 10, 20 businesses, but I sub, like the wealth advisory could be a subcontractor. I have primary subcontractors who could be my colleagues, could be some of the people on this call that are handling a business. I could be subbing a business that Mike sold in Roanoke or wherever, Richmond. So we can be subcontractors for each other, actually doing the delivery or some small fraction of the delivery, like the wealth advisory or bringing in an investment banker or whatever, right? And then if you need just an advisor, you could do that too. And any good general contractor has 3 or 4 plumbers, 3 or 4 electricians, 3 or 4 roofers, right? They can go to depending on availability or the nature of the job. That construction model might be worth studying and applying to the practice development that we're talking about here, just because of the way the whole process has been created.
Yeah,
Kim,
How I run my business.
can
too.
I please comment? Because this is exactly why we use the term general contractor. The general contractor has no hammer, right? Has no wrenches. The general contractor has this. And he's like, where the hell's the roof? Great job on the foundation. Guys, we're running back, we're late with the doors. Tim, you're spot on.
Yeah, George, I would just add to this. The I had somebody say to me one time, well, anybody can be a general contractor because I have contacts, you have contacts. And I said, that's a load of crap. Because if I'm going to hire a general contractor, they not only have to have the contracts, they have to know who's really good. They have to have the ability to sequence the job and know what it should go, right? I don't want a general contractor who's reading the book to figure out how to build the building. But they also have to know the code and what's acceptable and all that. Like, there's a lot to being a general contractor that's more than just having a list of electricians and plumbers and roofers, right?
Heck yes. Is accountable for turning the blueprint into finished.
The buck stops with you.
Well,
Yeah, and correct. And you got to have excellent project management skills and. But most of the general contractors I know also self-perform on some of the things. They might have a group of framers. I know a general contractor who happens to be a drywall company, and they do drywall stuff, but they also do remodeling. So they general contract across the whole thing. So they often have some amount of self-performance and a bunch of what we would think of in that general contractor. So I don't think the lane is just this wide. I think you can design the model how you want to. Tim, I think it's an excellent model, and I use that model all the time.
So some general contractors do design build, which is the growth drive model, right? Design, right? Analyze, design, execute, right? So design build is the breed of general contractor business that we'd be doing here. We'd be helping with the design first, analysis first, right? For sure. And then analyze.
And when you put design and build together, you don't get a design by an architect that looks really great, but can't be built.
Yeah.
And you don't get builders pointing at the architect saying, like it's going to cost 50% more because you designed some crazy ass thing that I can't build. So by putting them together, you get a great solution that's executable.
Take it, Savannah, quick.
You guys are making me smile because back in 99, I moved to San Diego and I did my very first construction remodeling job. And I wanted to start my own design management company, not build, bring everybody together and fill in the blanks. And then my very first business was a digital platform for the residential home building industry. So when I was thinking about this, and Tim, by the way, I've already mapped everything. The value growth quarterback is exactly that model. So it is both the architect and the general contractor and coaching in free. The whole idea. So I've basically mapped every function that a small business owner needs to oversee or know in order to run their business. And the whole idea is to identify 3 or 4 subject matter experts in each of those areas. So I can bring them in as part of the delivery. They could be single invoice, or it can be separate. But the whole idea is that my goal as a 3 and a 4, and as an educator too, for that matter, or 1 to 4, depending on what's going on, is that work with the business owner and CEO to hold that strategic vision up front because they're always busy down there. And so if we figure it out with a growth drive and we design the strategic plan for the next phase of their business, and then make sure that everybody is aligned in their team, the decision makers, and they could be internal or external. And that's for me, in my personal experience, being in the other side as part of the business is, how do you, as a business owner or CEO, gel together the people that are in your business that are decision makers and outside of your business that have a say in the success of your business? Like maybe your fractional CFO, maybe your tax accountant, maybe your lawyer, maybe whatever. A lot of those people that are fundamental in the success of the business are part-time. They are not aligned. And so
this is a gig economy.
Yeah, the value growth quarterback, the idea is that the job, the main purpose is not only to like build the strategic plan, to hold them accountable via coaching and general contracting, whatever, bring the right people on board, but also to make sure that all the people that are part of the decision, and the success and the end result are all aligned regularly, all the time, not just at the end of the fiscal year, not whenever you have to do compliance, not everything else. And so managing that, I think that's what's the core. And in a way, it's what you guys are talking, and basically mapping everything and making sure how they intertwine with each other. Yeah. Depending on the phase of the where the company is, it's very important too. And so that's what I've designed the last 2 years or so.
It's a super strong model that goes straight into the 1 to 5. Silvana, thank you. Yeah. Guys, it's been almost an hour, and I'm hoping that last week we trampled straight through the end. This week we might do a round of key takeaways. Would that be okay with everyone? Great. Who wants to start and pass it to the next player? Right, Mike, go ahead.
I'm still recovering from my sneeze. Next.
I'll start. I love this conversation. It's been going on in my mind for a while. I appreciate Mike kicking over the hive to get the conversation started. There's clearly a lot of expertise and perspective here. Very helpful. My gears are spinning on high. So thank you all for your input.
Awesome, Tim. Thanks. Who do you want to pass it to?
Oh, I'm going to pass it to Eric.
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation also. A special thank you to Barry, because I think it's good for us to kick around what our ideas are, but it's also good to be grounded in actual experience, right? It's good to tie things back, not just to opinions or things we've all read, but to actually lean into things that have worked in reality. So, Barry, I appreciated you sharing what you had done and just being willing to be a little bit transparent on what worked and what wasn't great about it, right? So thank you.
Thanks, Eric. I agree. Who are you going to pass it to, man?
Jeff.
I knew it, Eric. Thanks. One of the best conversations I've had in the last month. Very invigorating. Loved all of it. I'm a big sports guy, and to me, the big takeaway is you're building a roster. Let's say basketball. You don't need 7-point guards. You got to have people playing the different roles, and they have to have a team concept. And I loved what was going on here, as I've been pretty open about with this group already. I'm kind of searching for my roster spot and where that fits perfectly, because I love to be the one doing the dirty work inside with sleeves rolled up as opposed to just the planning. So great stuff. Love this. Barry, or you?
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for your comments. You go through your career, and it's like raising your children and then having grandchildren. You can watch your grandchildren grow up, but your kids, you're involved in it all the time, and it's all on, you're moving fast. To sit back and reflect on what you've accomplished and how you can help others. And I would love to have this conversation with anybody, because I feel very passionate about building a business rather than building a practice, and to draw on those experiences and reflect would be really enjoyable.
Barry.
And Mike, you mentioned I should be on these calls all the time. If it wasn't golf season, I would be on the calls. but I'm on the disabled list, so for a couple of weeks. So I'll be
Can we
around.
put a monitor with Wi-Fi or Starlink on your cart?
Well, Barry, tell us your scores next time you come. If you are
I
missing,
don't tell you
just
my
move the-
scores. No, you don't want to know my scores.
Hey, Barry, you and I are only 90 minutes apart. We need to get together and hit that little white ball into the hole, 400 yards down.
I'm all in for that at any point in time. I
Okay.
just need 5 minutes notice and maybe an hour to get there. So, and I'll pass it to Mike.
Cool. I got a lot of takeaways. One of the biggest takeaway was I really enjoyed having done some stuff at a different level. I enjoyed the confirmation from Barry and Savannah about my antipathy for franchising and also other licensing models I've done. So it's really interesting how this is evolving. And so I really appreciated having both people that I'm referring to and trust implicitly, new friends, but also people that have done it as well. And I'm going to pass it. This is hard on me, but I'm going to pass it to Ed.
I know it's a struggle. Just getting a senior person to pick up after you is always a challenge. But, I think that the networking and the utilization of us as support for other of the group that are on here. I'll give you a classic example. The Focus CFO people have discovered that because I have almost 30 years of knowledge in the green industry, I'm now doing consulting to some of their clients and their financial people in different parts of the country because I ran the southern part of the U.S. So I'm very familiar with issues, et cetera. And I still am working with another consultant from an operational perspective for that industry that lives in Charleston. He's on the Isle of Palms. He's not near where George is. He's on the water side. But the interesting part is when you do valuation work, I see so many companies who have business owners who don't recognize they need operational guidance, if you will, from a professional team. They think that their methodology that they've had in place for 20, 30, or 40 years is absolutely awesome. And then they discover all they've got is a one person in charge of making every decision, and everybody runs to that owner and says, what should I do now? What should I do now? And so, there's 5 people outside of the office waiting to ask what's now, instead of having a process and a system in place. And when we come in and look at something like that, we say, how the freak did you let it get this far? And you're doing 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 million, and you're trying to manage everything yourself. And I think that's one of the things that we bring to the table of saying, you've got to get out of the way and let some people make decisions.
Yeah. Effective senior
And so I
leadership.
think that the concept of aligning us with some of our expertise to each other will help significantly, because there's a lot that some of you do that I don't want to touch. And the niche that I'm in, but ironically, in some industries like the green and the pest control and the building maintenance and janitorial and the carpet cleaning, I've been consulting with now for, since 1983. And so I have the benefit of having walked a lot of paths and written a lot of advisory articles in magazines that are dealing with those industries. And I think that's the part that you got a chance to tap. You can get the answers without having to go back and learn how to do it and stumble.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks, Ed. Silvana, real quick, we're 4 minutes over. Sorry to cut you a little short, but
That's okay. That's okay. I enjoyed Barry's insight on real cases. And with that, I'm going to plug in again. Gentlemen, I have put my email there. I am anxiously waiting, in a good anxious way, to hear from you about your use cases. Let's get it going. I am ready, and I'm happy to work one with you to make it happen. But we need to start getting some movement. So I'd appreciate your help on that.
awesome. And Tim, I see your post here as well. Thank you. Guys, this was a fantastic conversation. Thank you all. I know we're running a little long, so I appreciate it. Have a great week. Anything I can do to help? Remember, tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern ask me anything. I will be on. And that goes sort of as long as we had a great conversation last week. So terrific. Have a great week. Anything we can do to help. Please
I
let me
see
know.
you.
Bye. Thank you,
Good seeing you,
Barry.
Next
buddy.
week.
All righty.
Bye.
Take care, guys.
This episode is brought to you by the Growth Drive Summit. Our theme this year is building a profitable advisory business. Join us in Charleston, South Carolina, October 6th, 7th, and 8th. Expand your network, learn new skills, and generally have a good time. This is a top-rated event. We're looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you.